Welcome to Majority Rules. This is Season 1, Episode 5. This is a podcast about Mizzou Athletics Majority, which is Olympic sports athletes. I am Karen Steger. I am the host of this podcast and the softball and gymnastics beat writer and Olympic sports manager at Rock M Nation. Who would like to go next?
I'm Abigail Klapkowskis. Just kidding.
Go ahead, Abigail.
I'm a senior, and I'm reporting on cross country and track and field this year.
All right. Now, I'm Dylan Heinrich. I am currently the soccer writer here at Rock M Nation, and I will also be writing women's basketball, which, of course, will pick up in the next couple months. So, a very busy couple months leading into the Christmas break.
And then I'm Matthew Gustafson, the volleyball and wrestling beat writer at Rock M Nation.
Awesome. And then Rory, as you can see, is not with us tonight, but she will be recording something that we'll try to plaster in here later. And she covers golf, tennis, swim and dive, and every other sport that we don't cover normally. So let's get to it with in-season sports. And let's check in with Dylan. There was a game. It wasn't good.
Yeah. I think I went into this matchup feeling, I didn't say hopeful for a win, but hopeful they would keep it close. Missouri soccer has done a really good job these last couple of years not getting blown out, even against these high-quality opponents. Let's not forget, Duke entered this matchup ranked number 8 in the nation. They had not conceded a goal since their first matchup. I thought, maybe they can keep it within 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 if we're stretching it, and that did not happen. Peek behind the curtain, I was taking an econ exam, and so I got out of that exam, checked my phone, and saw it was 4-0 at halftime, and then walked home, checked it a little bit later, and saw it was 7-0, and it was 7-0. It was not a pretty sight for Mizzou soccer. Had a couple decent chances early, but other than that, Duke showed why they're one of the best teams and a lock for the NCAA tournament, if not a top 2 seed in all likelihood. So I think if you're Mizzou soccer, it's all just about you flush this one down the drain. This is your one really bad loss this year, and just refocus for SEC play.
Yeah. Hold on. We don't need this sound on. But this was kind of indicative of the game.
Yep. Good header from Kylie Simmons, but just hit the crossbar early on, and it didn't get much better. Interesting to note, actually, that clip reminded me, as you can see, it's Monica Bronner taking the corner kick there. Usually it's Milena Fisher in that role. She was also out for that game due to a medical concern. She also missed the SEMO game for the same reason. When I talked to Coach Golan after SEMO, didn't seem like it was serious. She thought she was going to be 50-50 for the Duke game. Ended up not happening. So after another week's rest, I would be very surprised if Milena didn't make it out on the pitch for the game Thursday against Texas A&M, but definitely something to keep your eye on.
So there was something good that came out of the week, writing wise, at least. You wrote an awesome, everyone needs to read it, feature on Coach Stephanie for Rock M Nation. So give us some tidbits.
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear about Coach Golan and her story. Started out military family, grew up in the St. Charles area, was a star in soccer, women's basketball. Academically, was extremely smart. She narrowed it down to Harvard and Duke, which is just ridiculous to have those as your final 2 schools, and then finally made the decision to go to Duke because of the academic scholarship, so that the rest of her family would be able to rely on some of that money coming in for college, which is an extremely sweet gesture. Started off really great career at Duke, had a couple injuries along the way, turned into more of like a student manager in her last couple of years, and really found a love for coaching. Bounced around the circuit a little bit, found herself as the head coach at Army for a couple years and found herself eventually at Minnesota. Had a lot of success, won the Big Ten championship, made a couple NCAA tournaments, then has come to Mizzou. When I talked to her, it was very interesting to see because we only talk about athletics in terms of wins and losses. But when you look at this Missouri soccer program, they have, I believe they ranked 4th in the NCAA in terms of GPA for, it was either the spring semester or all of last year. They were leading the pack pretty much when it came to community service hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to see the type of culture she brings and who she considers to be a integral part of her program. I put out a tweet from a little bit of that article. I think it was a really good encapsulation of what she looks for and what Olympic sports should be about as a whole. I don't have it on me off the top of my head, but if you want to see it, go check out my Twitter and go check out the piece as a whole. It was so much fun to write. Absolutely amazing woman and just a role model that everyone should be looking up to.
You're not going to talk about the burritos?
Okay, that I did.
That's like a piece of that. That's like a key nugget of the story.
That is true. So, of course, the part that I found very funny is this originally started when the trip back to Duke kept hyping up these Cantina burritos. And so I finally asked her about it and was like, so what's the Cantina? So it's called the Cosmic Canteen. It's this little hole-in-the-wall restaurant in the Duke campus. It's their menu's all written out in chalk. They have like the steepest stairs known to mankind, and they're open till 3 a.m. So you can expect the type of shenanigans that can go on in a place like that. But I remember she hypes them up as the best burritos to ever exist. So I looked it up, saw a couple photos. She might not be lying. Those looked very enticing. So I think I got to make the trip out to Durham at some point just to say that I've tried them.
I'm sorry, but if the world's best burritos are in Durham, North Carolina, I would be shocked.
It would be, hey, who am I to distrust Stephanie Golan? What can I say?
That's true. She knows all.
Yes, it's...
So, yeah, everybody needs to check that out. It's really great. Really, really great. And got a bunch of really nice pictures, historical pictures of her throughout her years. Good stuff. So looking ahead, SEC play opens up.
SEC play starts Thursday. They get a home match against Texas A&M, who I wouldn't say they've struggled so far. They've done about as expected. They're a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. They might make the NCAA tournament. They might not. So a loss against Missouri, the current state they're in, would definitely tank their tournament stock. So I would not be surprised if the Aggies are full force heading into it. But Missouri seems to hold their own pretty well, especially at home. They rarely lose by more than 1 goal. So I would expect them to be very competitive in this match. I think the key, of course, is just going to be get your offensive threats going. Kylie Simmons has been close. She's got the 1 goal. Going to need to see some more. Bree Buells in her sophomore year still getting adjusted. I think if you can get those two, Milena Fisher back fully healthy, will definitely be an advantage. So I think if you need to beat the Aggies, you got to put up at least 2 goals. And I think those 3 are your primary candidates to do it.
And then Sunday, they're at Arkansas, correct?
Yeah, that is the magnum opus for this year. I mean, Arkansas is ranked number 4 in the nation right now. I don't believe they've lost a game. I think they've scored 35 goals across like 7 games, which you don't have to do too much math to realize that's a lot. So it will be a tough test for sure. If you were expecting a win, maybe don't. But it'll be interesting to at least see how they measure up. I think if they can keep it better than that Duke score, big win for the Tigers, especially in an SEC conference setting where Arkansas, they almost drew last year in Columbia. So it's going to be in Fayetteville. It's going to be a big challenge. But if Missouri can somehow weasel their way out with a tie, maybe small chance, but a win, you never know. That could be a turnaround win, not only for the season, but for the program as a whole.
Yeah. And then real quick, what you're working on. I know you have something coming out tomorrow.
Yes. So I don't know exactly when it'll probably come out before this podcast goes live. So if you want to check it out,
Probably.
on Rock M
I think
Nation.
like 11:30 or something is where I have it set.
I just wrote about the 10 teams that Missouri soccer plays in the SEC. I thought it was a lot of fun to write about, to research all these players, teams, some of the history, especially because now they play Oklahoma and Texas again for the first time since 2011. So it's rivalries renewed there. The big storyline coming out of that, Mizzou gets a lot of those other bottom feeder SEC teams at home. Could be some really good chance to steal some points. Other than that, got new Tiger targets where we'll take an even more in-depth look at Texas A&M and Arkansas, while talking a little bit about Duke and SEMO, kind of the yin and yang of the Tigers season so far. But so far, that's everything I'm working on so far. I actually looked it up. I'm dangerously close to hitting 50 contributed stories for Rock M, so that's also something that I will probably be putting out on Twitter when it happens.
I've lost count
That number
of mine.
I don't even want to know what yours is.
I haven't checked mine. That's a lot of volleyball matches, a lot of interviews, a lot of duels. I've got to be at least. I feel like I've got to be near 75 by this point.
If only there was.
I know that not this past softball season, the softball season before that, I wrote like it was like 25 to 27,000 words on softball. I did not look at it this year. It was kind of insane. Oh boy. All right, you know what? I'm going to jump around here. Let's go to Abigail first, and then we'll go back to Matthew. So, Abigail, what's up with cross country?
Well, they just had their second race of the season, first season debut for some of their top runners. The Missouri Tigers went all the way out to the Penn State Spiked Shoe Invitational, which thus far definitely takes the cake for best named home meet. It's a very strange 5.2 mile race on a golf course. 5.2 doesn't equate to any typical PR course, 5, 6K, 8K. But those are the kinds of random, strange things we find sometimes in cross country. The men, super exciting, took third behind Syracuse and Georgetown. Georgetown is Coach Kyle Levermore's former school where he was part of the coaching staff. So he has some familiarity with the Northeastern programs. And I think in talking with him preseason, he was excited to see how they matched up. It wasn't close. They definitely took third. Syracuse and Georgetown were very comfortable, but they are both in the hunt for their respective regions. So that makes sense that the Tigers came in third, and they beat the host school, Penn State, which is always kind of fun. I was really impressed. Ryder James, Drew Rogers, and Blake Morris, their season debut, all placed within the top 25. And a huge priority for Coach Levermore in these races is to keep a very tight pack in those front 2 to 4 runners, depending on the race. And that's what James and Rogers did. They were really able to maintain basically dead even splits through the 5K, and then a few runners were able to get in between them. Every single runner that gets in between them tacks on points. So watch for them to execute that strategy even more, especially with the familiarity they have at the home course. But I was impressed with a course that none of those runners are familiar with to be able to do that. On the other side, we have the women. They took 7th. It wasn't great. It was led by Rahel Brumell in 21st. 7's not bad for the Missouri's program, but it wasn't. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear Coach Levermore's opinion on that. I guess that's all I'll say. Rahel Brumell led the Tigers. She was 21st. She was the only Tiger within the top 35. Interestingly, and Missouri cross country track and field Twitter, probably run by Ryan if I had to guess, got my hopes up because I'm live refreshing the feed, and she was in 4th place through the midway of the race and then dropped to 21st. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. And when you're not able to watch the race, it's really fun to piece together the story looking at the splits. But the positive spin on that is she was in 4th place through midway of a race in a very competitive field. I think that shows that she can get out quickly. And in some of looking down the stretch, being able to put yourself out quickly and having the courage right off the gun to lead a pack is impressive. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take that as a minor win. My little mini MVP of the meet is actually going to go to first-year Charlotte Cullen. This was her first scored race as an official Tiger. She ran the Missouri home opener unattached, and she placed third. To be able to score for your team and only your second collegiate competition is really impressive, and I think it speaks to the strength of the Missouri's younger Tigers. I get to talk about rankings, which is super exciting because unlike other sports, Missouri or cross country in general really likes to wait with bated breath on their rankings. So the preseason USTF CCC 8 rankings came out August 26th. Indeed. And now we finally have week 1, even though they've raced twice. The math doesn't math, but that's just kind of how the world cross country works sometimes. The women dropped from 10th to 13th in the Midwest region. Again, not really surprising after only one of their runners scored in the top or placed within the top 35. The men dropped 1 spot from 7th to 8th in the Midwest, and at first I was a little bit disheartened by that. However, after doing some digging, it's honestly less of a reflection of their talent and more random reflection of Bradley University of all schools. They have an impressive crew who jumped up 4 spots. Okay, so get this. It's hard to compare time from time because different courses, a good time on one course is nothing on a super hilly, challenging course. So unlike basketball or other sports, that doesn't work. However, 6K PRs are 6K PR. How can you run that distance the fastest? So Bradley raced for the first and only time yet this season at the Hawkeye Invitational in Iowa City, August 30th. They placed 5 runners in the top 10, all ahead of Iowa's entire squad. And more impressively, their first 2 scoring runners were 20 plus seconds ahead of Missouri's Ryder James and Blake Morris's PRs. Like the fastest Ryder James and Blake Morris have ever run. Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's fair. They deserve a better spot in the rankings. So watch out. The maths, I guess. This is why the rankings are determined. There's 1 coach representative from every region. I believe this is similar to volleyball's rankings. And they submit a vote. And I'm like, all right, so they know what they're doing. And also, quick little note, that's why I love cross country. I love cross country for this very reason, because the smaller conference schools can still cultivate impressive talent because it's such a more individualized sport. So you can have 2 Bradley runners who may or may not pace at the national championships. Looking ahead, Tigers are going to run next Friday at the Gans Creek Classic. Breaking news is my younger sister, Leah Klapatowskis, is going to run there, and I am so unbelievably excited. She is a true freshman. She scored for the UNI Panthers in only her second race. She placed 5th, placed 13th or 14th overall, but 5th for her team. And so I get to watch her race. So I'll be live tweeting the men's race, and then I'm going to go full fan mode, but come up with a race recap after. So, yeah, that's for hell and more footage from the spiked shoe. Also, guys, I don't know if we have any SEC rivalry fans out there, but hopefully this motivates some people to action. I was scrolling through all the cross-country accounts, and the Texas A&M Aggies had 5,540 fans show up to their home opener. And
that is insane.
Friday at an 8 a.m. That is crazy. Like, I don't even quite understand where all these people came from. Obviously, cross country is the best, so I get it. But, like, that's really, really impressive. They're not even the top school in the SEC. So if they can do it, I'm just saying, not only could you come watch the Missouri Tigers, we could also watch up-and-coming runner Leah Klapatowskis. So just saying, hopefully. Let's see what we can do next time.
Yeah, I got a class at 9 a.m., though.
That feels like an excuse. I don't know.
I don't appreciate that. So I know you said that you probably will not live tweet the meets if your sister's running. So I think we'll probably just check in with you later on how that ends up going. And
I live tweet the
your sister.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I'm super excited for her to come. She said, I'm curious to also get a runner's perspective on the course who's not a Missouri Tiger, because last year, all the runners I spoke with said the course was not fun, but it was also incredibly warm, and there's no shade. It's not through a forest. It's just a field. So I'm curious to see, kind of from an opponent standpoint who hasn't raced on the course yet, what it feels like. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Exciting. Cool. All right, so then now we'll shift back over to the roommates. Volleyball time. So, home opener weekend, Mizzou Invitational. Mizzou is the unofficial big winner.
Yep, it's not an official championship because not all the teams played each other. It was kind of a weird setup because Lindenwood actually had their own invitational Friday and Saturday. So they literally just played the one match. Yeah, really weird. But nevertheless, the Tigers come out of it 3-0. We talked about last week, kind of had a little bit of a down week, right? Go 1-2 at the NKU Invitational, have that surprising loss to South Dakota. No surprising losses this time. They go 3-0, are dominant while doing so, starting with 2 victories on Friday. The first, the home opener against Kansas City, swept them 25-13, 25-15, and then just a little bit of a fall off, 25-18 in the third set. They hit 442 for that match compared to only 159 for Kansas City. They also had 7 blocks and 9 aces to the 2 blocks and 4 aces for the Roos. And in addition to that, they had the only player who hit 300 or better on the team with 5 or more kills for them was their setter. Anytime the most efficient player on your offense is your setter, you probably didn't have a very good match. And Kansas City did not. But they did have a better match than UT Martin. And I believe that the Kansas City match was also where you saw 16 different players get into the game for the Tigers.
Yeah.
Highly unusual. You will rarely see more than maybe 11 or 12 during a match. You look at the rest, you look at, for example, UT Martin that night, they got, something like 12, 13 in there. But you saw redshirt freshman Tatum Longnecker made her collegiate debut, as did top recruit, third-ranked freshman Claire Morrissey. So that was a good moment. She unfortunately did not get her first kill in that match. She did get her first kill over the weekend, but it was more like she had a dig which went over the net, and UT Martin just didn't dig it. They just didn't like. It was more UT Martin not really doing what they were supposed to than anything that Morrissey did. But even so, you get your first career kill under the belt, always cool. But like I talked about, UT Martin, they were just not good. Like, there's really no way to put this. UT Martin, they did not have a good match. Mizzou took care of business, but UT Martin just was clearly an overmatched opponent. And this is what happens when one of the better teams in one of the best volleyball conferences goes up against one of the worst teams in a lower-level volleyball conference. Mizzou sweeps it 25-12, 25-9. They stopped them from even reaching double digits, and 25-13. Mizzou hit over 500 in this match. They hit 513 and held UT Martin to a 0.79 hitting percentage, including a set in which they hit negative 0.077.
Oh my gosh.
Jordan Iliff had a big standout match in this one, 16 kills on 23 attempts, a 6.09 hitting percentage. She also added on 3 service aces and 11 digs, something that would eventually help her become the SEC co-offensive player of the year, which will not of the year, of the week. Just
maybe it'll be the year.
We'll get into in a minute. But finally, they go up against Lindenwood on Sunday. They win it 3-1. They won 25-17, 25-16, the first 2 sets. And then they kind of took their foot off the gas. They got a little bit distracted. And Lindenwood ended up taking the third set, 25-22. Dawn Sullivan, after the game, had talked about, needing to be a little bit more consistent, making sure that they're kind of going at 100% the entire time. They don't get a little bit off track, don't get distracted, take their foot off the gas pedal, whatever phrase you want to use for it. But then they locked back in and blew the Lions out 25-13 in that fourth set to take that 3-1 victory. They hit 279 on the match. Lindenwood hit 106. They only had one one set in which they hit above 125, which was that third set. So they really dominated this match with the exception of that third set, which obviously you'd like to see them take care of business in set 3. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, it is encouraging to see their response. Now, some of the key things I noticed, I mean, this is a really deep team. We knew that. But it was really interesting to see Dawn Sullivan give so much playing time to her bench, because there were a lot of reserves who were in that were playing way more than they had the entire season so far. This also allowed her to rest a lot of her starters. You know, you saw Reagan Haith as one of the starting middle blockers. Didn't really play much this weekend. Neither did Sierra Dudley, the starting setter. So you got other players who were able to come in, get some more experience, stay fresh. You rest some of those key players for this upcoming invite. And then something that kind of struck me from the Lindenwood match was the first 2 sets, they had a really good defense in terms of when they were out of system. You know, you make a really nice save, and then you kind of have to scramble to get it over right in 3. But they were able to scramble really well. And then even when they were out of system, they were able to be effective on the attack when they were doing that. And it was a little bit of a kind of just hectic situation for them. They were able to adapt really well. And that's something that you see the best volleyball teams in the country do, right? Mm-hmm. Now, this is only 2 sets. But if they can do it more consistently, that's going to allow them to reach that next level. And so that's going to be something that I'll be watching this Thursday and Friday, when, depending on if you go to the Mizzou website or the Lipscomb website, the tournament is either named the Lipscomb Tournament or the Lippy Invite. Don't really know why, but it's definitely one of the weirder names that I've heard. You know, I'm a big advocate of, hey, these volleyball tournament names for non-con are really boring. We should make things more interesting. Like golf and cross country have some phenomenal tournament names, right? We need volleyball to be at that level, all right? Let's start thinking of some more creative ideas. But anyway, before we get to the Lippy Invite, Jordan Iliff, SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week, and then Marina Crownover, the backup setter, got a lot of playing time this week, including in that Lindenwood match. She had a career high in both kills and digs, got her first career double-double, and that led to her being awarded SEC Setter of the Week. And then somebody else that really impressed me was middle blocker Colleen Finney, who had 3 excellent matches, is able to have, I think she had over 5 kills in each, and then I had a couple blocks in each of those as well. So, Dylan,
let me put up the dagger, the Finney dagger.
I'm being informed that she had over 7 kills in each match.
This is a true statement.
So, including at least 1 double-digit effort, but she's just incredibly efficient on the attack. You know, she's not, the number 1 option on this offense, but when they go to her, she is incredibly consistent and incredibly effective.
Like, look at that. That is just...
And that's just a team like UT Martin, they're not going to be able to defend the quick set up the middle there, especially when they're out of system. That is just an absolute golden opportunity for Finney, and she's not going to miss that. I mean, that's automatic for her, really.
Yeah. I just want to keep watching it over and over again.
So coming up, the Tigers have 2 matches at the Lippy Invite. Thursday, Friday, they got Lipscomb, and then bragging rights in volleyball. They're going to be facing Illinois, but it's going to be in Nashville. So that's, didn't expect to ever hear Mizzou versus Illinois taking place in Nashville, but here we are. Yeah. So there you go. But honestly, and this may sound like a controversial take, but Lipscomb, honestly, it might be the more entertaining matchup and the tougher opponent. I mean, this is a team that was second in the Atlantic Sun last year. They had a higher RPI than Illinois. They had a better record. This is a team that is returning almost all of its key pieces, including the ASUN Player of the Year, 2 all ASUN outside hitters, and some other starting players as well. So they're not going to be a pushover. They're going to be looking to push this to 4 or 5 sets, And if Mizzou overlooks Lipscomb, they could give them some trouble. But then, of course, you have Illinois, who was picked to finish 11th out of 18 in the Big Ten. I said I project that one to be a Tigers win as well. I would say maybe 3-1. But this is going to be a really interesting one because, again, two opponents that are at a higher level than we saw at the Mizzou Invitational. So, again, do they struggle after a strong weekend, or are they able to build that momentum heading into SEC play? Do they look kind of like that NC State match where you're facing a relatively tough opponent, but somebody that you should still beat, and then you end up really dominating? So I think that if you see that in these matches, then you feel really good heading into SEC play.
I feel like Dawn's going to get him back on the right track. Like,
I think
I don't think that she's going to like too much that they let the one set from Lindenwood get away from them. Like, you gotta keep your foot on the gas. Stand on their throats. Some football coach used to say something like that. Like, just
Cobra Kai, no mercy. Volleyball is a merciless sport.
Yeah.
You go for the kill and you don't stop.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Because they do have kills.
Yes.
That's
in
what
more
I think.
ways than one.
I have my own MVP from the game on Sunday. I do not know the person's name. However, I would like to shout out the nameless athletics staffer who helped fish my sunglasses and keys out from underneath the bleachers because I set them on the chair next to me and then moved my leg and caught my phone, and my sunglasses and keys fell right underneath the bleachers. And I was just staring at them like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And this soccer staffer, I think, I didn't know who she was, but she was wearing a Mizzou soccer shirt, said, oh, I'll see if I can find facilities. And he, this man, you couldn't just crawl underneath there. There's crossbars. He had to wedge himself between crossbars to get me my keys back. I was just like, oh my God. Thank you so much, nameless man. So he's the real MVP of my heart anyway. Yeah, so there's that. So what you have coming up? Sorry, Matthew.
All right, so exciting news. Last year I did the Over the Net, a Mizzou Volleyball interview series. That was a text series on Rock M Nation. Let me tell you, folks, it took a lot of time to transcribe. So I found a new and improved way to do it, which saves me time and also makes it more entertaining for you as well. Over the Net is now going to be on radio and video, Rock M Radio, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever the heck else we have our podcasts that we upload. I'm a Spotify guy, so I really don't know some of the other ones. But that is going to be available hopefully Thursday. So I guess probably around the same time as this podcast is coming out. So you can watch, who knows? Maybe you can listen to them back to back or watch them back to back. But my first interview is with the assistant coach, Ariel Wilson, who is the recruiting and defensive coordinator for the Tigers. She also had a very interesting career as a player. She was part of the class at Penn State, which won 4 consecutive national titles, the only time it's ever been done. And then she also spent 5 seasons playing internationally. She spent some time on the women's national team as well. So we covered all of that and more in that interview. So make sure to look out for that.
We'll go to Rory's update and then out of season sports.
Hello, everybody. A little bit of change of scenery for me this week, but I'm here as always to provide you with your golf update. Now, last weekend, I talked about the women's golf team and their invitational in Kentucky. This week, I'm going to tell you all about the men's golf team and their 2 tournaments they played in. So if we start with the Put Me In Coach Invitational, Virgilio Paz won in a playoff and in his first collegiate tournament win for him, which is huge props. Definitely a player to look out for the rest of this season. He's going to continue to make a wave. If we look at the other 3 players that placed in this invitational, you got Trent Murrell in 3rd, Trevor in 5th. So you got 3 top 5 guys on this team cruising into the rest of tournament play, and Jacob Hansen in 14th. So huge showing for the Tigers. Incredibly impressive for a start of the season to them. Definitely something to keep an eye out for. Now, the rest of the team was over the border in Canada, the Canadian Collegiate Invitational. Now, heading into day 3, guys, those Tigers, they were in first place with a huge lead over pesky Notre Dame. But, today just was a rough day, round 3, shot plus 10, and it moved them into second place. They still shot 12 under par, which is still huge for this team. I'm going to try and share a little graphic for you if I do this right. Okay. So here you've got your invitational up here. You've got Vika Viscari, who took 5th place overall. Huge accomplishment for him. Shot under 8. Doug Barter, Sigurd Bronson ended up shooting under 6, which was equally impressive for both of them. I'm sorry if I butchered either of those names, but this is huge for this team heading into conference play. They'll be in Arkansas next week, while the women's team, keep an eye out, guys, they are in Columbia. This is huge. They are in Columbia, which will have some huge updates for you guys there. But this golf team, this was incredibly impressive for a start for this season, and I can't wait to see everything else. But updates from me wise, I'll keep you posted. You can find the Twitter. I don't know if it's linked up here, but it's Rory Whetstone 7. I repost and post about the golf team regularly to provide you guys with some updates. But baseball, we kind of touched on this last week. Baseball is back. It is fall ball season. It's my time of year. I'm super excited. Should hopefully have some pieces out to you guys soon about this team and what I think is going to take place this season, year 2 for their head coach in the SEC. I'm super excited for them, but I'll keep you guys updated on all things golf and baseball.
Abigail, I realized I forgot to ask you if you had any track updates.
No new announcements yet. Oh, but we do know that John Anderson is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he was a former track athlete and captain, of which he informed me when I didn't realize that he was a track athlete here. So, always a humbling experience, but he will be a faculty member starting in the spring of the J School. So that kind of works out well with that induction, I think.
So he will be here at the end of the month, I think. So I know that Chad on the Mo show is already going to be sitting down interviewing him, but I'm hoping that we can also arrange for a sit down with you and John Anderson when it gets a bit closer to track season. You guys can chat, and that seems like that would be easy to do because he'll be here.
I would love that. Very excited to pick his brain. And he's from Wisconsin and a big Badgers and Packers fan. So that's always fun.
Well, there's that too. And then
no big signees. Coach Shimov hinted at the fact that the ink hasn't dried on a few new recruits. So I guess I'm watching for that, but I don't know when we will know.
Okay. And then I had forgotten to put on the outline, but Carissa did some racing in New York City, I think.
Yes, it was the New York Road Race. I don't know the distance off the top of my head, but she won, I believe. Yeah, which is awesome. I was really excited to see her kind of back to full strength at the Olympics, and continuing and transitioning off the track onto a road race is a whole different type of race style on your joints. And I think it's really cool, the road racing and the Diamond League, and New York City does a really good job there, Road Runners Club. It just keeps the runners in like a competitive environment, and that is getting a lot of steam, and a lot of those run clubs are really, really competitive. And yeah, cool to see her competing against some international talent as well.
Yeah. And then Dylan, you don't have anything for women's basketball, you said. So I'm going to go to my updates, and then we'll close with Matthew has some wrestling updates. So first off, just a couple softball things. So they held their big fundraiser dinner on the Diamond, I believe it's called. Oh, it looks like Brian Smith was there. Look, just a connection between
crossover event.
Nice. So yeah, they I was gonna try to get the sound and then I messed it up. Sorry.
So it's with your teammates.
Yeah, so it looks like they did a crossover event. That's pretty cool. Maybe one year I'll try to get to that. It looks really neat. Players sharing their stories, all that kind of stuff.
We could not do what we do without you guys. I love what I do. I love where I do it at. But most importantly, I love the people who I do love. And I did.
So you guys, how weird is it that like there's no Jenna, there's no Alex anymore, there's no Krings? Like
we're gonna have to learn a bunch of new names.
At the end of an era. It's so crazy to me. I don't know how I feel about it. It's like, oh, I guess like Crenshaw and Dave, elder states women now.
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy to think about. My big update is guess who went to gymnastics open gym this morning? It was me. It was me.
I spent the art of persistence.
So I got to go because I have this weird role in which, because I don't get season tickets since I write about them and get to go for free, I do donate to the Tiger Scholarship Fund for gymnastics. Not a lot of money. Karen is not rich by any stretch of the imagination. But I give them the same amount of money that season tickets would cost. So because of that, I'm considered part of the Booster Club. And so the Booster Club members got invited to go to practice today. And it was really awesome. I was there for like 2 hours, I think. Didn't really see a whole lot of full out routines. They put out some stuff on socials on Friday that looked like full out routines on vault and bars. But it was more like endurance work. I spent a lot of time in front of the balance beam with Coach Jackie Turpak going over more dance type of moves on the balance beam, which you know that they do them, but didn't really think about how she was involved in that aspect of it. And then Lacey Rubin is actually the head beam coach. So she was talking about how they were doing something called endurance beam. So they would have them do a number of different motions, like to get tired out almost, and then have to like do one of their skills after that. So it kind of was cool to watch. Like, you'd never know how they go about doing things like that. So I thought that was really neat. And then I saw a lot of vault as well. I did not take a video of them doing this, but in order to make sure that they're getting high enough above the pommel horse, they put this like large white thing like on the back of the pommel horse. And so they had to go and do their run down and then make sure that they cleared that white thing to make sure that they were going high enough. So that was pretty interesting as well. Had a talk with Shannon for a little bit. He said that he thinks Hannah Horton, who is a sophomore this year, he thinks that she's going to be really big for them because she wasn't there all the entire summer last year, because most of the time the freshmen don't come in until July. So she was here all summer, got to work with her all summer, and he really thinks that she is going to be huge for them. I talked to the Booster Club president, Jan Summers. She said when she was there on Friday that she thinks that, keep in mind, vault last year, Mizzou only had three 10.0 start value vaults. She thinks they might have 7, which is more than can fit in a rotation. So that is pretty awesome. So I do have a couple of videos. I'm going to hope that this works. So this first video is freshman Rayleigh Jackson. This is just a practice. What Nate Salzman told me later was kind of like a warm-up vault. I thought it looked pretty good. She landed a bit wonky, but she's fine. There's lots of big mats there. So yeah, she is a freshman this year. I was talking to Amari Celestine because I kept hearing her call someone RJ, and I finally was like, Amari, who's RJ? She's like, oh, it's Rayleigh. It's Rayleigh Jackson. So apparently they give everybody nicknames, and normally they would call her Ray, but Raina Light is already Ray. So they had to come up with something else. She said it took an inordinately long time to figure out what to call her. And then she said that, like, so last year when Mara came, Mara's would have naturally been Mar, but Amari's nickname is already Mar. So it's like, I actually didn't figure out what they call Mara. I don't think she said. It's not Mar, though, because Mar is Amari Celestine. So here is a video of Amari. Much ran into the wall. It's so much power off of that. It's crazy. And then finally we have one more. This is Addison Lawrence's dismount on beam. So Addison Lawrence was out all last year because she had hip surgery. Shannon said that she is 100% back on beam now. And he says that she's probably about 75% on bars and floor. So that's pretty awesome, especially because, she had major hip surgery. Like, it wouldn't have been that crazy for her to still not be ready at all, given what somebody that I know that's an occupational therapist said that normally that kind of injury takes back. And then after that, we'll see Kaya Tanskinen, I think I said it right this time, doing a really cool mouth. Yeah. I sent that to Nate, and he was like, oh yeah, that's a That's a big one. And I was like, yes, love it. Love it. And then, so that is all I think from gymnastics. The last thing I was going to talk about is that real quick in the W, Sophie Cunningham has signed an extension, and former Columbia Trib reporter, we're going to go with Chris K. I don't want to mess up his name or make him mad at me. He works for Fox 32 now in Chicago, and so he covers the Sky and all the other professional teams around the area. And he happened to catch up with Sophie at the Mercury Sky game this weekend and got some audio for me. I will also put up this photo. So there's apparently quite the contingent of Mizzou fans there. So that was pretty cool. And then
I do think that Mizzou, that outside of the state of Missouri, Columbia does have the largest Mizzou alumni base in the country.
Chicago.
Because I think it's Chicago and then Dallas.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
I think they were also doing a trip there. Like some organization was sending a bunch of kids to Chicago for that game itself. And I know that they got like special privilege, so I would assume it was attached to that. I think if there wasn't football, I would have found myself on that bus or plane ride up too.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So this first clip, I have to remember to turn this up louder, is her talking about her extension real quick. It's only like a minute and a half.
I feel like you are very public with your love for the Mercury and Phoenix. So signing an extension didn't, from an outside perspective, didn't seem like, a hard task maybe to get accomplished. But for you, how easy exactly was it to sign this extension?
Yeah, to be honest, my career at the Mercury has been very high and low. Like we've had 2 new owners, we've had 2 new GMs, I've had 4 head coaches in my 6 years, and obviously a lot of turnover. And so for me, I before Matt came in, I was open to different ideas. Like I'm a very loyal person, and I've been with the Mercury, and I love it. I think it's my new home away from home. And so I was a little iffy about if I was going to come back. But then you see what Matt was doing, not only for us, but for the community of Phoenix, and all the resources and how much he's pouring into women's sports. And it's not just show. He has a daughter. He sees where our culture can improve. And so for me, it was an easy choice. I love the vision and the culture that we've created already in a year of new people in the front office and a new coaching staff. And so for me, I just love the vision. I'm going to be a part of it. I'm going to be excited about it. And I'm genuinely really excited to see what the future holds with me in the next Mercury.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. They really had, I'm a Mercury fan because Brittany Griner is like my favorite player on the earth. And they really have been through it with so many different changes, different players coming in and out. Like, it's been pretty wild. And then this last one is Chris actually asking Sophie about her time at Mizzou.
It's a bit also difficult. How different of a player are you from being a freshman in Mizzou all those years ago to now? What have you had to learn? What have you had to change?
Man, that is a great question. I think my biggest thing was you have to stay ready. Like, you never know when your number is going to be called. I think the first couple of years, really 2.5 years I was here, I was D sub, which, looking back in hindsight, that's pretty phenomenal that you get to be per sub. And so, but when you're in it, you come from being the star for wherever you come from. It's like why, it's just like starting over again. But I think you learn a lot. And I think that kind of speaks to our culture now today too, is like, you get to where you want to be and you expect to have this much money, you expect this much fame, you expect all the time stuff and those are the most unfulfilling things ever. It's like, what am I learning through each process and each step of the way in this journey? And so for me, I've learned a lot. I've learned that I just need to be me. I think the more that I'm myself and my goofy, silly, competitive self, that actually I shine more. And so it's like, be your own person. Don't compare your journey to anyone else's. But I will say, I'm glad that I learned that early, because now looking back, I've started the past 2 years. Now you bring on 4 Olympians on our team, and I'm coming normally off the bench when people are healthy.
It's also difficult. How different of a player are you from being a freshman in Mizzou all those years ago to now?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool, especially because she really did go from, being the star at Mizzou to playing behind Diana Taurasi and having to deal with it. But the thing I like about the Mercury is that they really do seem like they allow everybody to just be themselves. So Sophie can be her normal, crazy, wild self, and they just they love it. So I think that that's super cool. And then we will close with Matthew. Wrestling.
So the senior world team trials were this past weekend in Omaha, Nebraska. There were 3 current and former Tigers participating. And before I get to that, if we come up with the nicknames for each other, I nominate this guy to be called the Count, because he just loves holding up like from Sesame Street. But anyways, we'll start with the former Tiger, Jared J. Hughes, who I guess he's a current Tiger again, because he's now, I believe, the recruiting coordinator on staff. So he picked up an 8-2 decision in the round of 16 at 70 kilograms. And then in the semifinals, he ended up dropping that match 8-3 to PJ Duke. And then after that, the freshman Aiden Sinclair up at 92 kilograms. He ended up losing, as I accidentally click a wrong tab here. Anyway, ends up winning his first matchup in that round of 16, just like we talked about with Jared J. Hughes. He won that one 11-0.
Wow.
So if you win by more than 10, then I think that counts as a tech fall in freestyle. So I think that would count as a technical fall against Connor Mirasola, and then ends up going, technical difficulties, folks. My computer's not cooperating with me. But he ends up going to the quarterfinals.
Still sound great.
Ends up going to the quarterfinals and loses 13-5 to Jonathan Aiello. Now, I buried the lead here because I wanted to build up the suspense. Keegan O'Toole. We all know him. Really good.
Love
really
him.
Good. Right?
Good
Ends
stuff.
up winning, again, that technical decision. Not sure what term they use in freestyle for it. But he wins 11-0 in the round of 16 over Andrew Dixon. And then you get the one which everybody was looking at. As soon as I saw the brackets come out, I'm like, ooh, I really hope this happens. And it did. Keegan O'Toole, David Carr. They meet again. And Keegan got his revenge for that semifinals loss, or at least as much revenge as you can get for being denied a chance to go to the championship match. But he beats David Carr 9-4 in the quarterfinals. And that brings him to the semifinals, where he faced Chance Marsteller. That one didn't go as well for him. He ended up dropping that one 6-0. But Marsteller is a guy who's been professionally wrestling for several years now. He's been out of college for a couple of years. And he's a guy who won, I believe, last year's U.S. Open. So very accomplished athlete. No shame in losing to a guy like that. But I think really the key there is that, O'Toole, very comfortable victory, right, over David Carr.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very encouraging sign, especially that he got all the way to the semifinals. I believe that his weight class he was at, 70 109 kilograms is a very good equivalent for the 174-pound weight class that he's going to be at this season. So encouraging signs, and he is looking exactly like the national title contender that we are expecting him to be.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. And finally, we've reached the end of our show. One last thing before we get out of here. Please head to rockmnation.com and support all of these fine people and the rest of the people that work for Rock M Nation. Last week alone, 40-something articles. It was a lot. And that's without even starting in on all of the men's basketball player previews, of which there are 6 bazillion. That is the actual number. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff coming out here. So you can support us by subscribing to this podcast feed and leaving us a 5-star review. That would be awesome. You also can join our subscription service, Rock M Plus, for just $5 a month. $5. And you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Karen Steger. Matthew is at M_Gust. Oh my God, why can I never say your name? Gustus 27. It's not even a bit. Like, I just can't speak, apparently. Dylan is at Dylan R. Heinrich.
Yeah, his is a little easier.
Abigail is Abigail_clap. So thank you for joining us. See you next time. Let's try this again. MIZ.
ZOU. I thought we were going to do like the Roly banner with the multiple sides.
I told you I could not get that off my window. It is decrepit, and I won't make it if I try to take it down. So sorry. We're just going to have to use... Here, hold on. MIZ.
Are we doing it again? ZOU.
So ugly. Oh my gosh. See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.